Hello everyone and welcome to game 2 in a series between Zenio and MMA here on Tal'Darim Altar. Like I mentioned before, my voice and I am suffering a little bit of a cold, so I'm gonna try to not talk as much and do less of the play-by-play. Now, Zenio has spawned on the bottom left-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, MMA spawning on the top right here on Tal'Darim Altar. Strategies would normally say that Zenio does like the fact that this is going to be cross spawns, as there will be a lot of walking distance until MMA is able to get to Zenio's front door. Also, Zenio should be able to take his natural expansion much more easily this time around, or much more easily than say if it was in any of the other positions, as the destructible rocks here are still rather far away from his opponent. The ledge over here where siege tanks can shoot from the low ground up onto the high ground is also a little bit a ways as well. So MMA will see if he goes for that reactor Hellion opening that's been standard, or if he'll change it up and go for that tech lab play that we saw with the Reaper expansion, or perhaps he may even try to go for a gasless opening for a fast expansion as well. All of those strategies very viable on a map like Tal'Darim Altar, as most likely MMA will just be trying to use the strategies that he's most solid and comfortable with. Now, right now we see that a refinery is being placed down, so it looks like it will definitely be a gas build. We'll see if he adds a tech lab or a reactor. Meanwhile, we can see that Zenio already going for that 15 hatcheries. So Zerg already getting an early start at his own natural expansion, trying to expand at this stage in the game. Very smart choice to try to hold and establish this natural expansion and perhaps get that mineral advantage early on. Now, second supply depot has been placed on the front door. No tech lab has been added as of yet, so that shows me that it is most likely going to be a reactor Hellion opening, and based upon the timing, more Marines are still being trained to Marines, as we are still harvesting gas at this point. Hatchery about 2/3 of the way completed. Meanwhile, spawning pool and gas is still being harvested, so Zenio will be able to be a bit aggressive with those Zerglings. Now, back over here, we can see that the hatchery is about to be completed. Drones may be transferred over. The spawning pool should be done and momentarily as well, along with that Overlord double training queens to really increase the larva production at both of these hatcheries. There's the reactor coming in from MMA, and I like this play. MMA, knowing that the map is rather large, know that there's a lot more ground to cover, and knows how fragile Reapers are, opting to go for the faster unit in the Hellions. Hellions are slightly faster than Reapers, or even with the Nitro packs, I believe that the Hellions are still faster, and they also are very effective at both against Zerglings and drones. Zerglings, however, are able to deal a lot more damage once the metabolic boost and those speed links are completed. It looks like those Zerglings are not going to opt to change direction. One Marine over here at the Zelnaga Tower. It looks like the Hellions are still being doubly trained right now, or just starting to be trained, and this may be a bit of an issue. If he had actually started training earlier, he may not be so behind right now, as the SCV may end up taking a lot of damage and falling to the hands or the claw of a Zergling. SCV now trying to run away. Is it going to be able to get there in time? Oh, one more shot. Is it going to be enough? No. Not enough. The Hellion driver needed to make his way over, and losing an early SCV. MMA now no longer building his command center either. It will be delayed. Zenio, it looks as though the queens are in production. A third queen now being added, as well as the Hellion's going to test that front door. Here is that spine crawler at the natural expansion, which is so common now. As the Zergling once more comes against that SCV, it looks like the Zergling is not going to be able to make its way through, as we now see a hidden command center by MMA. MMA opting to go for a very heavy macro game, establishing up a third base. So it is going to be a 3-base Terran now. So 3 bases for Terran. And this expansion will be established and will be built for quite some time before Zenio does spot it. Hellions are deciding to back off here. the Overlord has not spotted the natural location where the expansion would most likely be placed out. We are seeing a stim pack now being researched, still going into more Hellions and only running off of one gas. MMA currently sitting on 15 SCVs on minerals, as the Hellions are now looking to perhaps delay and cause a little bit more harassment on these creep tumors. Roaches will be battling against these Hellions, but the Roaches not quite fast enough to deal with those Hellions, especially off of creep. Even on creep, they don't nearly move as quickly as I'm sure MMA would like them. We are upgrading to an orbital command here, so MMA being a little greedy with this expansion. He's not going to have any real way to try to defend this expansion if it is scouted out early. MMA currently sitting at 52, 55. You see 52 drones versus 33 SCVs. Not that many units were taken out early, as the Hellions are now trying to splash and contain these roaches. One roach does get taken down. MMA being very careful to move another Hellion all the way to the back end here. It looks like that one Hellion will get taken out, unable to deal any serious damage to that last Hellion here. And now MMA with a slight advantage in terms of army size, but really behind in terms of economy. Hellions running up against a straight group of roaches once more. The Hellions will be forced to pull back, losing 2 additional Hellions, losing 4 food there. That is going to be a problem, as MMA finally going into 2 gas play. That gas has not been up for more than a minute and a half, as we are now also going into double engineering bay for research. Overlord still hanging around over here, doesn't see the expansion being taken just quite yet. The Zerglings have already taken out the destructible rocks here, but unbeknownst to him, MMA has already been mining with mules down in this location, and if he called all of his mules here, that would be a very safe bet, knowing that he could easily strip mine this location and not be forced to leave his base out nearly as quickly. Marines and Marauders are now looking to take that third base, or what looks like a third base for Zenio. Or to Zenio. MMA now establishing up his 4th. A command center could be built off here, lifted up and landed if the opportunity presented itself, and perhaps it will, as Zenio still getting a lot of drones and still droning up heavily. Harvester count now 68 to 49. As it will be eventually 2 bases, or 3 bases to 3 bases in just a moment. Roaches are now scampering across the field. Zerglings joining in on the fight as well. There are Hellions here and Marines. Are they going to be able to perhaps push back these roaches easily and quickly? The roaches are backing off here. The Queens are laying down a lot of creep tumors, trying to act as an early warning defense, as the Marine quickly sees the Queen, sees all that creep, and it's going to be very difficult if Zenio or MMA decide to engage on creep. All these creep tumors may fall now. Zerglings are now going to try to engage. There's the surround on some of those units. The Marines don't really have anywhere to go, as the Banelings are going to find their target. And nicely played, as the Marines, after a couple of them were barely able to escape. The Banelings do not have movement speed upgrades, and therefore only move as fast as stimmed Marines. So they are slightly slower than stimmed Marines, won't be able to catch up to them. Mules still being called down over here. It looks like MMA is going to start strip mining this starting location, not wanting to really call the mules off at his starting base and his natural expansion, respectively. Metavax, Marines, and Marauders now engaging here, as Zenio does have 1-1 upgrades, but MMA slightly ahead, ever so barely, with 2-2 upgrades. A 4th hatchery is now being established. Harvester count is 67 to 76 in favor of Zerg. There are mules, though, as we are now going into Mutalisk. At this stage, and the 12-minute mark is standard timing for Mutalisk. We'll see if MMA does throw up a couple missile turrets in just a moment, as we now see the Marines are trying to hold and push across the center. Zerglings now trying to torch their way in, but the blue flame tag Banelings just busting their way down a couple of Marines, as the Marines, 1 or 2 Marauders and Hellions finish off the rest of these units. Marine and Marauder now still doing their rounds. It looks as though this one Marine will fight up against the Zergling. The Zergling should be able to win that war. Yes, is able to do so. Natural regeneration helping or edging out the Zerg ever so barely. Meanwhile, more Marines are still being added here as Zerglings and Marauders and now Banelings and Mutalisks joining in on the fight. There's not really enough Marines to really push back against the rest of these Mutalisks. The Medivacs will all fall. And now MMA might be in a little bit of trouble. He doesn't have the right combination of units to turn this game around right now. He perhaps needs some Thors, as Zenio has about a 30 food advantage. MMA may decide to upgrade this to a planetary fortress or an orbital command. We'll see what comes of this. It is going to be a planetary fortress, but MMA is already behind here. As you can now see that the command center about 20% completed. Marines going up, Zerglings and Banelings. Zerglings, no Banelings as of yet. The Marines trying to fight back, and it looks like the Blue Flame Hellions really doing their work. But the SCVs really need to start repairing as missile turrets are now being established. Still no missile turrets down over here, as more units are being added and should be able to push back all of these roaches. Roaches still without the Glio reconstitution, the movement speed on those roaches. Zenio does have Burrow, and we'll see what this is going to happen here as, the Zerglings may try to run away. No, that doesn't look like the Zerglings will run away. Going after those units, and there's a nice detonation by Zenio, taking down multiple Marines. 2 Banelings taking down multiple Marines there, and now MMA's attack force looks much less scary. The problem though is that MMA still has this hidden expansion here. There is one SCV over here which has kept track of the spine crawlers and the hatchery that has been built, and now we'll see whether these Marauders, Marines, siege tanks, and medevacs will be able to execute a nice elevator drop to destroy this expansion here at the 6 o'clock location. Zenio being very careful, getting up 5 spine crawlers to defend. MMA getting 3 missile turrets and the planetary fortress to fend off both Mutalisks and Zerglings. Zerglings are going to try to push in, and it looks like the planetary fortress already getting an easy round of kills there. But now the siege tanks are going to be shooting up here. The overlords have given sight, and you will see that there are Marines off over here. The Marines pushing down 1, perhaps 2 of these overlords. Hatchery looks like it will get destroyed as Zerglings are now going to swarm in from the top. The Marines need the stim as the Zerglings are going to be able to deal a lot of damage or simply waiting, lying in wait, and now going to come in here, spot this additional hatchery and deal some damage to these SCVs. Zerglings going to take down multiple SCVs here as the units continue to funnel in, causing MMA to be in trouble. There are missile turrets, Mutalisks, Infestors, Fungal Growth, and Liquid Zenio shutting this down, shutting this base down as the orbital command simply flying its way over. Will the missile turrets be able to take down any more of those Mutalisks? It doesn't look like it, as orbital command now down to 1,000 hit points will not even be able to land here, but it is still 3 bases to 3 bases. Baneling so far in this, 1 Baneling and 1 Zergling so far in the center here, not really going to be able to detonate very much of anything, as those Banelings only, I believe, deal 40 some odd damage to the units. You can see also another drop over here at the 3 o'clock location. There's a scanner sweep revealing all the drones. Zerglings will try to come in from behind, but it does not look like it will be able to clean up all of these Marines as the units quickly jump inside and perhaps land on the high ground. Siege tanks, Marines battling it out here. Zerglings are being forced to pull away as Zenio is in trouble. He still does have the larger food army, but it doesn't really feel like he has any of the momentum in the game necessary. Zenio, operating off of a macro hatch, knows that this hatchery has not fallen either. It is still generating income for him. As we now see what a 3-base Terran player can do against a 5-base Zerg player. There's currently about a 30 harvester difference between these two armies, 90 versus 58, but MMA also means that he has a much larger population army or it should at least, as he's going to be able to continue to train up more units behind, as he still has room in the food cap. Siege tanks upgraded 1-0 are starting to siege up here. You can see the orbital command here will be repaired, missile turrets will be established, and MMA will now be operating on 4 bases. Zerglings now trying to put pressure over here. Are the Marines going to engage? Zerglings now surrounding the Thor. Banelings detonating, but not really taking down that many units, as an SCV needs to be unloaded or brought over to try to repair this Thor. 190 versus 193. Corruptors and Broodlords are now being trained as we are at Hive Tech. Will it be enough to really push back this very large army from these Marines? Apparently, Bob the Gob has left the game. I don't know how it affects me, but Marines, siege tanks, and medevacs should be pushing down here in just a moment, as this medevac, I believe this drop was finally cleaned up by Zerglings and Banelings. Zerglings off over here, burrowing, preventing the command center from being able to land. Same thing, another story off over here, as we now see the Thor up on the high ground, able to get some damage onto the low ground area. The Thor does have a range of 7, so it should be able to start hammering away if it perhaps got into that position right there. Is it going to get enough? Yes, it does have enough now, just shelling away at the hatchery. Missile turrets are now being built, but it looks like it will be too little too late, as the Broodlords take quite a while to reach their target. Marines now simply pushing across the field here. Siege tanks are lying in wait, ready to go. Going to take down both of these Zelnaga Tower, or one of the Zelnaga Towers, both of them, as the Broodlords are now making their way over. Drones, none of them are growing up to be hatcheries, as the Marines are now simply going to try to stim in here and get in a lot of damage. The Queens now being forced to pull all the way back. No transfusions at all. The transfusions would have been much more beneficial, as the Thor now finishing off even more units again. The Queen now trying to make its way out. No transfusion there. It looks like Zenio is not going to even really bother to defend this base, as this base is going to fall. Meanwhile, Zerglings focusing down a lot of units in transit, going to take down all of these Marines. There they go. It is now 153 compared to 170, but a base has been destroyed by MMA. So Zenio now essentially running off of 4 bases to his opponent's 4, which is never a good feeling to be in if you are playing up against a Terran as a Zerg. Orbital command still not doing much off over here. Missile turrets, siege tanks could start to shell away. The spine crawler taking a lot of damage already, as we are now going into a Zergling drop into the main base. All the Zerglings are now just going to run rabid through this base here, as we now see one Baneling, I believe, was able to detonate and deal a fair amount of damage. Marines now trying to finish off the rest of the Zerglings. Overlords getting shot down as well, but we will see some Marines trying to retreat all the way back, or only to see that he's running straight into the arms of another Zerg base, and the Banelings finishing off these units. Banelings, oh, both of them getting detonated until, or before that, they fought this larger group here. The Zerglings are now all burrowed. How will MMA deal with these harassing units, as the Marines are now attempting to take down the hatchery, but in come the Broodlords. Zenio with those Broodlords should be able to finish off this war and force a game 3 in this series. Zerglings once again popping up out of the ground, going after supply depots. It looks like supply depot after supply depot will be destroyed. One Marine now engaging over here, and now even some more Marines have decided to show up. The Zerglings going back to their place, and perhaps will be able to get down a little bit more damage once again. Corruptors are forced to run away. Vikings, I believe, are actually slower than Corruptors, but the Broodlords are the slowest of all, as the Corruptors unable to seriously engage against those Vikings. Now, Marines and Vikings going after those Broodlords. Broodlords are all falling. Corruptors now about to engage, going after the Vikings here as well. That Viking at 35 hit points. Slayers MMA now at 164 compared to Zenio's 125. And now I believe Zenio will be giving the GG, as I cannot imagine how he will be able to get back into this game as of yet. The missile turret Missile Turret and MMA still establishing a lot of expansions. He has more expansions, he has more map control, and I believe now he may actually have almost even harvesters as well. Mules continue to mine this, or strip mine here, as the Infestors, Corruptors, and Broodlords are on the move. They are upgraded 1-1. You're going to see an attack here. Vikings taking down Corruptors. There's a fungal growth. Siege Tank able to turn around, get some easy shots here. But is it going to be enough? Banelings may find their target. No, don't find their target. And Zenio says, GG. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed Game 2 in this best of 3 matchup, as MMA was able to even up the series at 1 game apiece.